What's good, YouTube? Back with another reaction. You know what I'm saying? Reacts don't crack. You know we coming back to back. Hope y'all boys been enjoying the double uploads, and I hope y'all boys tap in with the Discord con, which is linked in the description. As always, we're gonna pre-fire a little like to the vid. You know what I'm saying? How y'all boys doing today? Gotta start a little greeting. You know what I'm saying? How y'all feeling? You know what I'm saying? Gotta make sure y'all boys been drinking y'all water, getting y'all some sleep, and getting y'all some sunlight. I'm low key going through it. As you can see, I'm low key oiled up. It is because it's like 80, 83, I think it was yesterday in this house, because I don't know why the AC is tweaking. Mind you, it's like at most 78 outside. I don't know why. I mean, it gets hotter in here because it's like confined and stuff. And then I'm in front of this ring light. So I'm saying the least you could do, as we always do, pre-fire that little like. If you subscribe, you make sure you hit that bell both here and on Twitch. Check out the Discord com. Keeps you updated every time I go live, every time I post a video. And the main reason I would say, let me promote to y'all, let me spit game to y'all. The main reason I would say it's good to subscribe to a content creator such as myself is because I react and I don't just like watch. But also, if you're into comic, manga slash manhwa, cartoon, anime type content, instead of having to go find it yourself because YouTube is like kind of dry, I kind of do it for you. And as you grow to watch, you'll kind of, if you mess with my personality, because you know what I'm saying, everybody is not for everybody in terms of enjoyment. Mess with my personality, you're eventually gonna get to watch that content and you kind of get that little bonus. You feel me? So I recommend y'all boys subscribe. New method just dropped. Can't yeah, facts. And if you join the Twitch, you'll be here when we react. You know what I'm saying? So if you find the videos interesting, boom, and then it kind of takes it off that Twitch type vibe, where it's long form content where someone's just like on the game, not looking at chat. It's like I'm reacting and looking at chat. I'm like having conversations with my people. I just found out one of my goats in chat, Helios, is tapped in with ball knowledge when it comes to reading manga. You know what I'm saying? If you want that type of ball knowledge, hop in. You'll never know till you join, but the world is smaller than you think. If you're looking for something, you might just find it in the stream. But we got a video about the Gods of Ben 10 by the GOAT Doc, and they got Ink Tank up here, which is like a team. But mainly, like when they first started, it was with Kuro the artist and the dog Dan Boy. I just wish they had my GOAT, what's his name? GMF, Great Matter Fanboy, bro. Because when we reacted to like 2 of his videos, he's commented on our reactions. You know what I'm saying? And I mess with it. I feel like as a reaction YouTuber, I feel like the biggest thing I worry about is like a creator thinking like I'm kind of stealing their content, because some people just watch, but like he watched through my reaction, he judged to see if I was stealing his content. Now he was like, "Oh yeah, great jokes. I wish I used that joke," stuff like that. So I think this YouTube joint kind of tough. So make sure y'all subscribe, hit that bell so y'all don't miss the wave. Without further ado, I'll just jump right into this video.
A number of times now about the strongest or the most powerful alien transformations in Ben 10. So today I thought we'd take a step back from that and talk about some of the most powerful beings in the franchise, both in and outside the Omnitrix. And ask some big questions like who really is the most powerful species in Ben 10, the Quantumalia or the Celestial Sapiens. But we'll be getting into that later on with the help of some very special guests. Before that, we'll go through some of what I'm grouping together as the gods of Ben 10. Yeah. That's a pretty vague description, but generally speaking, aliens? I'm talking about the more godlike beings with the ability to control reality in one way or another. And if not outright warp reality, they do have the ability to navigate it differently than other species. As a quick aside before we really get into it, we do have 2 in-series beings who are referred to as gods in each of their respective series. The first example in the classic series is the character Arpak, who's the Mayan god of death. But as far as what we see from him in series, he's certainly strong, but he's more comparable to a 4 arms than an Alien X, for example. Yeah. And compared to everyone and everything else in this list, he doesn't feel so godlike. Anyway, it turns out the description of God of Death was more of a mix-up than anything. In a similar way to the DNA source for Blitzwolfer being confused for the Navajo werewolf, Arpak, like a lot of the more out there goings-on of Earth.
If you play video games a lot, you might be able to get paid for it, no joke. If you
I trust, I'm not addicted. I can stop anytime I want.
Someone along the way just equated with the Mayan god of death. Assumably, he just belongs to a long-lived species who couldn't communicate in English and isn't all that mythological. Following that, and getting into characters we can more directly refer to as gods, and this one actively being worshipped in series, we've got Dagon or the Dagon, who, really getting into the overarching themes of this video, is an extra-dimensional being. During the events of the Ultimate Alien finale, Dagon finds his way back into the universe of the Prime Timeline, where he's an absolute menace, being such an enormous presence that he totally eclipses an Ultimate Weibig, who's already however many times larger than Weibig already was.
That's insane.
As far as appearances and general theming goes, his design feels like a major nod to Cthulhu, Though we do get these stylized flashbacks where he resembles more of a typical dragon, but that feels more so like the look of him was lost in translation over how many generations, rather than a literal physical change in look. Though seeing as he can reshape himself in all sorts of different ways, it's a reasonable conclusion to make that he could have very well been a dragon at some point. And I've always quite liked that explanation myself. Kind of depicts you as a god. As far as how he works and why he's on this list, Dagon doesn't seem to be able to be defeated in any conventional means. The way they go about it in series is by taking advantage of the fact that, in his own words, his substance is power, meaning he's functionally a being entirely made up of energy in the vein of an Anodite or NRG species. He's not quite on the reality warping levels of later entries on this list, but his physical presence, ridiculous strength, and mind control make him a pretty notable mention for this group of beings. Before we move on, there's some debate amongst people who worked on the series on if the Omnitrix could have a Dagon transformation. Duncan Rouleau saying it could, while Derek J. White says Dagon is beyond the scope of DNA.
I mean, he's an energy being, so I think, yeah, he's kind of beyond DNA, but if he's sentient, he has DNA. And it's similar to NRG, I think he just talked about, and he is literally like, he's wearing a suit. His species wears a suit because they're literally like nuclear radioactive energy. Like, that's the alien species. So, like, to be fair, because these are aliens, their DNA don't have to be based off our, like, their energy, but yeah, they can still have like a DNA core. That's how they are a life form. That's why, even though he's energy, like energy, if he was just a ball of energy, he'd dissipate eventually, right? But he's being held together by something, and that would, you know, most logically be his DNA. I think that is what kind of makes Ben 10 tough. Besides, like, the scaling on some of his aliens and, like, some of their abilities, like, Chromosome's able to just absorb all types of energy. You got, like, your feedbacks and stuff who held, like, the Big Bang. But there's also, like, the fact that if he's fighting anyone who's alien, the point of the Omnitrix is it takes the DNA and makes it the most peak that it can be. And then if we're talking about an Ultimatrix, it takes the DNA at its peak and then sends it in the simulation of it fighting every one of its species for like 1,000 years, and then they evolve and get like new abilities. So it's like, that's why if we're saying like Ben 10 versus a random nameless Kryptonian, and he has time to get a Kryptonian transformation, he got that. Ben 10 versus Average 10, he got that. You know what I'm saying? And then when you start getting into specific people who, like, you know, are considered the peak of their species and have like combat experience, then it gets crazy. You know what I'm saying? But I think most, like, for example, Viltrumite DNA, it's alien DNA. It's very clear. Even if something's energy, if it's like a thing that is together, conscious, and not dissipating, it is not technically entirely energy. Like, Waybig just cut off one of his tentacles. Like, he has a physical body.
It's more akin to magic than a physical being. I'm paraphrasing a bit there, but that's the general goal of things. That particular disagreement feels worth noting, since our next entry on this list, despite being what feels like infinitely more powerful as a species, are able to have their DNA put inside the Omnitrix.
Hey.
Though I suppose they've got nothing to do with magic and do have a form of DNA. Moving away from individuals a bit here and really getting into the species we're covering, we've got alien exospecies, the Celestial Sapiens, being a race of reality warpers.
That also kind of shows you what the Omnitrix does. Look how, like, beefed out Alien X is. He's a Celestial Sapien, but, like, bro, look at his traps. Look how proportionally wide his chest is. He has a Dorito body, which means his lats are pretty tough back there. Only thing you complain about is his legs ain't that crazy. But I literally turned you to the peak of your species. And I've seen videos, like, arguing whether when Ben 10 becomes human, his DNA is reverting, or if he's transforming into a human. And, like, I think it'd be accurate to say he's kind of transforming into a human. It's just the Omnitrix has a set. I think my theory is that there's a reason the Omnitrix has a set timer, because it manipulates your DNA. So say Ben stayed this alien for 5 years or something, right? I'm assuming the Omnitrix would register that as who he is. That's like the generic DNA, and every time he becomes human, he still look like Ben 10. But, like, say he timed out, he will go back to whatever that alien was. And I think that's why the Omnitrix doesn't let you become that alien forever. It does let you become that alien for set periods of time because it stores the OG DNA, but it's not as simple as, like, we're just removing this. It's like, no, it's injecting his veins with the human DNA again. And I think the best support to that theory is the fact that Ben 10K is, like, the most looking human of all time. Like, it's like chiseled, kinda. So it's like, and we don't hear that he works out, he just fight. You feel me?
Celestial Sapiens, being a race of reality warpers. Their abilities boil down to being able to control time and space to any extent they like. And to boil it down even further than that, they can do anything. In series, Ben alone, well, somewhat alone, recreates the Prime Universe. They're nearly invulnerable even to events like the universe being destroyed by the Annihilarg. We'll circle back to that later. On screen we see a lot from this species, most of which is in a single fight between Ben as Alien X and the Galactic Gladiator, where we see shapeshifting, teleportation, force field generation, size altering, self-duplication, and all sorts. But thinking more broadly, they should be able to do whatever they decide, really.
Yeah.
The only drawback is that inside every Celestial Sapien, there's two individual personalities that have to come to an agreement to make any action whatsoever. Yeah. Being the reason that, for the most part, pretty much exclusively part of Omniverse, we just see them standing or floating around a bit.
This would be the biggest medical...
Unsponsored. It's like a... Offer up the vibes remind me of Night at the Museum. It's the new Jurassic Park movie. Yeah. Stepped out of Black Widow and start doing anything. You know what I'm saying?
I'd like to make note that while I say they can do anything, there are some implied limitations.
Yeah.
As far as the universe being destroyed by the Annihilarg, Ben doesn't undo that destruction, he just recreates the universe. Shouldn't say just, but you get the point.
He doesn't rewind time to recreate the universe, because destroying it, the universe is a space construct, but it also has time within it. So when it's destroyed, the time space there that was the universe, technically speaking, can time exist? It gets into a crazy philosophical level, but if everything is destroyed, does time exist if no one's there to experience it? Time's a concept that we made. So that joint destroyed time and space. There's nothing there. But Ben being outside of that, as Celestial Sapiens are, he couldn't rewind time because the time was destroyed. But what he did is he created new time, and he literally recreated the universe, made almost every event the same, and kind of fast forwarded that bit to bring it back to what it was before the joint got destroyed. And then because he didn't rewind time, nobody had their memory because they were recreated, so they had no memory of the event. And then I remember the porcupine looking dude, those some big words, get an ad block. I mean, if they work for YouTube, I'd tap in. I just know YouTube get laggy without ad block. I might get premium chat. I might do it. If it's still cheap, I might do it for y'all boys. I ain't gonna lie. But yeah, I think there has to be a limit to it. But I think it's even crazier that he didn't just rewind time. He created an entire universe and changed particular things, like the recipe of the smoothies and stuff. I think that's tough. I think that's a tough little bit to add.
And the Celestial Sapiens have a list of weaknesses to different species inside the Omnitrix, like being able to have their life force drained by Vladats, being able to be eaten by upchuck species, put to sleep by pesky dusts, or being scared by Topix people. Though when you're thinking that, assumably they could just decide that none of that should be the case anymore, and that's the end of it.
They can change.
There's also the question of how they allowed their DNA to be put inside the Omnitrix in the first place, or why they have issues with our next entry in the list in Professor Paradox, who's banned from going anywhere within 500 light years of any Celestial Sapien. I'm pretty eager to get into the other two most powerful species, but to quickly touch on Paradox's place on this list, Professor Paradox, after being trapped for however many millennia, now has an in-depth understanding of space and time, giving him control over time with what feels like unmatched ability to utilize that as effectively as you could imagine. With the only caveat that there are some limitations to him, with him stating that there are certain places he can't go and things he can't do. But even then, is it he can't or he won't? There's a lot of broad implications and brief moments where we see him do things you wouldn't assume possible, even forcibly reverting Ben back to human out of Alien X, taking him back to the moment in time before he transformed in the first place. Presumably going against the wishes of both Bellicus and Serena, who would have probably happily had Ben staying there forever, though they didn't go to the trouble of preventing him in the moment. Moving on to another species here, and one we know even less about, we've got the Naugeans, who may not even be called that, but that's what we've got to work with from the series. Their name stemming from the Naugean Destructor, which could either be a destructor belonging to the Naugean species, or a destructor for Naugeans. In any case, it's functionally a children's toy to them while being so advanced to the Prime Timelines universe that it's comparable to the Omnitrix. And that comparison between a children's toy and the Omnitrix makes this species feel larger than life. We see them teleport across dimensions, use telekinesis, and what they'd consider to be a child member of the species is 3 million years old. That, and they can perceive reality in more than 3 dimensions, telling Ben and the others there's only 26 dimensions that matter. We don't really have a lot else to go on there, but I thought it was worth mentioning as we build to the final godlike species with the Contumalia, who fills somewhere between the Naugeans and the Celestial Sapiens in both presence and how they seem to go about interacting with other species, or at least from what we see from them. Like with a few of the others on this list, the Omnitrix isn't able to have a Contumalia form, since the Contumalia don't have genetic material that's close enough to DNA. In what feels like but probably isn't so similar to Dagon, though it does make me question how the Celestial Sapiens DNA works.
Unsponsored of Doom, chat. That might go. Oh, that was my name. My fault. Spider-Man's up there for me too, I ain't gonna lie. I feel like he gives me that like teenage hero vibe. Even though Barry is not a teenage hero, I'll say Barry / Wally. I got Flash, I got Nightwing, I got like Invincible. He's making the spot there. Spider-Man. There's like certain heroes that just give you that vibe. Like they go through stuff. Their purpose is like hope, and they show like the life that people typically live. That's a tangent though.
Another multiverse helping species that functions a bit like the Watchers from Marvel.
Adblock's been cutting down. The YouTube been cutting down on Adblock. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Much more active
that's the only reason like, I'm worried about that. So I might as well probably get premium now that I'm like.
They are fifth dimensional who, unlike the
I gotta lock me in though. I'm trying to get some
bread. By three-dimensional beings, instead being seen as projections of whatever the viewer sees as holding the most emotional sway over them. Like how Ben sees them as Mr. Smoothie or Maltron sees them as multiples of himself. As I said earlier, they observe, but along with that, they play a role in the creation of the universes with the device we touched on earlier in the Annihilag. The Annihilag, or there's a much longer name that I can't pronounce, is a reasonably straightforward device that, when activated, either destroys or creates a new universe, depending if there is a universe where it's activated or not. But as we see in series, this is fallible and can be overridden by the Omnitrix's failsafe, allowing Ben to transform into different aliens, eventuating in feedback containing the Annihilag's energy before redirecting it at Maltron. And what leads me to the big question in this video: who is more powerful between the Contumalia and the Celestial Sapiens? So to answer that question, I've reached out to a few friends of the channel to give their thoughts.
Hey everyone, Kuro the Artist here. So who is more powerful, the Contumalia or the Celestial Sapiens? They're both multi-dimensional powerhouses in the Ben 10 world, but with such little information to work with, all we can do is make our best effort to guess. Let's start with the Contumalia, as we know the least about them. We know that they're fifth dimensional, we know they exist outside of time, and we know that they travel the multiverse with ease, both creating and destroying universes. That's about it for them, as they only have that singular appearance in the final few minutes of the Prime franchise. As for the Celestial Sapiens, they fit pretty much all the same criteria as the former, being outside of time, traveling the multiverse, all that good stuff. And while we do see them in action more than the Smoothie Heads, especially in that Galactic Gladiator fight, most of these feats are either incalculable or so comparatively small scale that they aren't worth the effort. However, I do think the Celestial Sapiens have more of an advantage. For one, they seem to have actual authority over the multiverse in some regard, even having a judicial system in place for illegal tampering of reality. The Contumalia created Ben.
That was tough. I think they pressed a bit. Like, this is what I like about Ben. He has, like, aura. Like, one time the CIA tried to stop him, and then he looked at them, and then they said, please, bro. He had them asking him to come in, because they know they can't do nothing to him. And then when he was here, I think he started off his defense by saying, like, something like, oh, I'm Ben 10, wielder of the Omnitrix, strongest in the universe. Like, he was just talking his... And then they reviewed the files. They reviewed what he just said to them and was like, yeah, innocent. He ain't do nothing for real. That's motion,
and then Ben recreated it. Yet the Celestial Sapiens only had a problem with Ben's actions, not the Contumalia.
Hey, bro, that'd be W-Mans. But I'm gonna handle it. We don't get paid yet. We're close to getting subs. We have to hit affiliate, especially so y'all boys can gamble in chat. Allegedly, for those of y'all watching on YouTube. But we have the followers. We have the like day streams. I be working my ass off, bro. I be 60 to 80 hour work weeks. You feel me? Minimum. But we just need like consistent chatter. So having you in here actually is like a huge help, because I know my head mod being here more times than not. And I think the concurrent viewers like 4, but like we just hit a stream that had like 17 concurrent viewers. So it's like it fluctuates, but because I stream so much, what I really need is kind of consistent viewers. So like back in the day when it was literally just me in here talking to myself, like I have schizophrenia, you know what I'm saying? With more people in here consistently, it'll kind of average out. And then we'll hit that mark, we hit affiliate, and then it's, once we hit affiliate, bro, it's Coke butter cheese, you know what I'm saying? We've been posting on YouTube consistently. Like the YouTube, like, also, I haven't said this yet, so I'm so sorry. Shout out to y'all boys on YouTube. We just hit 50 subs. I was stuck at like 34 because I wasn't posting content. So within posting YouTube content, which I think I've only started doing since I've been here, I think, don't hold me to that. No, I did post some content back at my university, but it wasn't consistent reactions. I wasn't posting these reactions. So now that we started doing them, we went up like, what's that, 13? Yeah, 13 subscribers, like in that short time. The viewership has been up too. So I really appreciate y'all, for real. for staying tapped in. I'm trying to find in my, I'm kind of finding my niche when it comes to like how I come to these reactions, like my energy. I try to smile a little bit more because like I started streaming first because I know it's more difficult. I've heard at least it's more difficult to do long form content than short form content. So for YouTube, I can't just be straight faced, just talking. Oh yeah, but I appreciate that. Da, da, da. I can't do that. I kind of had to like. It's not like I'm faking a personality because I believe in authenticity when it comes to content, but I'm amplifying what's already there. I'm like gonna make those jokes, fix the timing, and sometimes I'm gonna make them early and then be like, oh, my fault. You know what I'm saying? It's like you just gotta kind of be yourself and like all the way. You know, in real life, you're yourself. If you're some people, you know what I'm saying, be pump faking, but you're yourself, but you're not always 100% on blast because it's real life, bro. People can clown you for no reason, people can hate on you, whatever. So you're not always gonna be putting yourself 100% out there. But you have like your close circle where like when you with them, you might start like I know we all remember trying to be mad at school, bro, and then your homeboys just start making you laugh, bro. And it's like I was trying to be look at y'all, bro. I was trying to be mad, you gotta be smiling it. So it's like for YouTube, I kind of gotta have that mindset that y'all are my close circle. So that is why we're in the Discord con. It's linked in the description because it's like a community now. I'm not just pushing out content, hoping I become the next biggest guy and making money. No, I'm like catering to a community. I want to see this joint grow. And I've kind of figured out my why for why I do content. You feel me? Not just to help the people connected to my personal life, but to help some of y'all. Like my goal is to kind of, not everybody's going to do something. To quote my dog Ask-A-Lot, it don't have to be God. It don't have to be a hero. Somebody needs to do something. It just has to be someone. It doesn't matter who. So I'm trying to take time out of my life to kind of focus on building something to where once we get to a certain point, I can help people who need help. And that is not just like my family. That's y'all are my family. Like I said, y'all are like close circle. I got to keep the energy up. You know what I'm saying? Because if y'all need help with something, I'm not Lil Uzi. I'm not paying for nobody's college tuition. I don't think I'm going to have that much motion. But y'all can prove me wrong. But like if y'all need something, I would love to be there. And that's why we got the therapy channels, all types of stuff. We're trying to build a community, man. Shout out to y'all, for real. Especially the people in Twitch. Shout out my dog Helios. Definitely when we done with these reactions, we hopping on RL.
Own could imply many things. Like the Contumalia do answer to the Celestial Sapiens, or at the very least, they follow their rules enough to avoid any illegal action. If the Celestial Sapiens are okay with the Contumalia's actions, and they've also proven that they will take action if they're not okay with it, I do think that that holds weight to having authority over them. Now, how does that play into who's more powerful? I mean, one can have legal authority over somebody else, even if a latter can beat them up on the playground. Well, barbarically, all laws had to have come from somewhere, and much like humanity, I imagine there was a chaotic power struggle among the multiversal beings that eventually led to the creation of the Multiversal Preservation Act, with the Celestial Sapiens taking the lead.
You did willfully and deliberately alter the fabric of reality.
You might know Harbor Freight for...
Why did they just sound like Raph? We buying it right after this, bro. I'm so serious. I'm tired of ads. And it helps with the content, but I'm also not going to get ads when I'm watching like personal videos and so like, you know what I'm saying? I hope it's not expensive. We're going to see how expensive it is first. I want y'all to see that reaction, but it's not like $15 tweaking out.
Either that or at the dawn of existence, they all collectively just agreed to put the Celestial Sapiens in charge for whatever reason. But even if the Contumalia were to rebel, realistically, what can they even do? They're fifth dimensional beings, sure, but does that mean they can also manipulate things on a fifth dimensional scale? Or do they merely just exist in the fifth dimension without having any actual control over it? Like you and me as human beings on Earth exist in the third dimension, but that doesn't mean we have the power to manipulate things on a third dimensional scale.
That's what he's saying, and that's what I'm saying. Like them being fifth dimension, they obviously are gonna have certain motion when they go back down. For example, we're third dimensional beings. Say there's like a drawing we have on paper. If we draw ourselves on paper, we have control of how swole we look or whatever, because it's paper. It's 2-dimensional. So to that thing on paper, we have complete control, and we can just change our shape and do all that stuff. But on a third dimensional scale, we're not like moving tanks, spawning things into reality like we in creative mode and just. You feel me? And that's why I think Celestial Sapiens take it, because they're like more combat oriented. From this other species, we just see like them existing. Now, if I'm wrong, you can correct me in the comments. You feel me? I'll be replying to the comments. You know what I'm saying? But like, you feel me? I'll get it for you, bruh. Trust.
Scale. Hell, I can barely manipulate Adobe Premiere to work right half the time. Or, as a similar example, humans invented the atomic bomb, right? We created that. But does that mean we can control it? Are we durable enough to survive an atomic explosion? Can we shoot atomic explosions out of our hands? Well, maybe you folks can. But to wrap things up, I don't think that the Contumelia being 5th dimensional forms automatically means they have...
I think that's a Gunnar joke.
Atomic explosion? Can we shoot atomic explosions out of our hands? Well, maybe you folks can't. But to wrap things up, I don't think that the Contumelia being 5th dimensional forms automatically means they have complete control over 5th dimensional physics. And with the Celestial Sapiens having far more impressive feats, in hand with actual legal authority over the multiverse, I'd say they take the reins as more powerful. Thanks for having me on, and until next time, keep it fizzy.
So I'm not a power scaler. I typically try to avoid power scale discussions because it always seems impossible for them to like stay civil. But Celestial Sapiens versus the Contumelia is a matchup that I haven't seen discussed, so I am a bit intrigued about it. So why not get my thoughts on it? Now we don't know much about the Contumelia other than that they're 5th dimensional beings and that their true forms can't be perceived by most beings. So they take the form of whatever has the most emotional value over you. Compared to them,
but it's so funny that the thing that has the most emotional value over Ben is a literal smoothie. Not any of his friends, not his grandpa, not his cousin.
Celestial Sapiens are a lot easier to understand, as they are basically gods
have, like,
in
at
the
least 200 grams of protein
from having physical forms that people can comprehend, to being able to just change reality and things within it, and also noticing things like continuity changes within the Ben 10 world. Like, I still think that is fucking hilarious. So figuring out who's stronger is kind of tricky, since one group is basically living off one single episode, while the other group has tons and tons of history for you to go off of. It's kind of like comparing a good rookie player to LeBron James. And personally, I'm taking LeBron every day of the week. Celestial Sapiens do so much in Ben 10, and yet they clearly are capable of more. Their species is both proficient in actual combat and have a high understanding of the universe. While the Contumelia are obviously super powerful, they seem like really chill beings, that's giving off the vibe that they may not be a race suited for actual combat. While they can obviously take out majority of threats due to just being omnipotent and having those type of abilities, there's a chance that facing another omnipotent being, especially when skilled in combat like a Celestial Sapien, may cause some trouble. But like I said, I don't fucking power scale, so I could be completely wrong, and everybody's probably gonna type down in the comments, "Oh, Danny Boy Warner's a fake fan." So, you know, yeah, if you want to do that, go ahead. But it's just my opinion.
And if we want an easy answer to our question, when asked are Celestial Sapiens more powerful than the Contumelia, Derek J. White gave a pretty clear yes. If you've made it this far into the video and aren't subscribed, please consider White gave a to our question. When asked are Celestial Sapiens more powerful than the Contumelia, Derek J. White gave a pretty clear yes. So if you've made it this far into the video and aren't subscribed, please consider doing so. Yeah. Either way, I appreciate you being here.
Shout out to dog Doc, man. Found my boy. Hit that noti bell. You know what I'm saying? And we've been watching since, bro. That was a nice more informational video. He always comes kind of calm about the gods of Ben 10 by Doc, and yeah, man, it was pretty tough. You can comment down below what you think in terms of what scales higher, but like, come on, the average consensus of 4 beings said, yeah, Celestials probably got that, and the author said Celestials got that, so it's not really a debate. But I appreciate y'all boys for staying tuned. I'm pretty sure I did the checklist, which means you got 24 hours to do 3 good deeds. Discord comments indeed linked in the description. Make sure y'all boys drink y'all some water, get y'all some sleep, and get some sunlight. If I didn't say this earlier, that's just crazy like memory to realize I didn't say it. But yeah, man, I know what time to find me tomorrow, man. Peace.